and he bought a pile of stuff there. We did this with Margie and with, well, we did it with Margie when we moved to Boca Raton, if you recall. But we also did it with Jennifer and Mark one day, one weekend. Oh no, that was the weekend with Betsy, right? I think we went through the Smokies. And there's the wagon, Folka and Thomas. Yes, your hair looks fine, Folka. Nothing wrong with your hair. Looking good. Mark is starting to grow. Mark's a couple months in the belly now. There's the wooden Indians. Even the Indians have wooden Indians. And here was an interesting weekend we spent in Charleston. Went down to see what Charleston looked like, and didn't know that President Jimmy Carter was running for re-election and touring the states. And as we were walking down the street, we heard a big clamor of engines and police, and along comes the travelcade, and there's Jimmy Carter waving to the countryside. And if you look closely, there's Jimmy Carter giving a speech. I was only about 8 or 9 feet away, aiming my camera at him. Security was not very tight. I mean, any one of these people with a camera could have been a potential assassin. The guards, the guard are watching out. But look at that guy with the camera, shooting him from behind there. Why is someone taking a picture of the back of his head? I never understand that. Here's a picture of here's the picture of the back of Jimmy Carter's head. Isn't that wonderful? And he gave a little speech to the people in Charleston, South Carolina. We toured the forts, Ft.Sumpter you'll see later, and we also went over to Kiawah Island and spent a day there, went swimming. Kiawah Island is the George Gershwin, Porgy and Bess location. They called it Kitiwah Island in the movie, in the musical. The words talk about, let's go for a picnic to Kitiwah Island, but it was Kiawah Island that they were talking about. And George and his brother Ira lived in Charleston while they were writing the words and the music to the opera Porgy and Bess to Get a Feeling. They lived there with George Haywood, the author of the book Porgy, which they later made into the opera Porgy and Bess. And this is Ft.Sumpter, where the first shot of the Civil War was fired. Took a boat tour. Fort is out in the bay. Little known fact, this fort was both designed and commandeered by Robert E. Lee, who, long before the Civil War in 1860. No, the first shot was fired in 1860. I think in 1830s he designed the fort and commandeered it. Was his first commander, and then when he was the commander-in-chief of the United States, chief of staff rather, of the United States Army in Washington D.C. in 1860, when the war started, it started at Ft.Sumpter, the fort that Robert E. Lee had designed. A lot of coincidences there. This is the waterfront of Charleston, famous mansions. Charleston was the city that Brett Butler, during the movie book Gone with the Wind, Brett was from Charleston. He would go back and see his wealthy friends and family when he was doing his block running. What do they call when you blockade busting running, when he would run arms to the South? He was really a hero of the South. Here's one of the bridges over the bay in Charleston. Drawbridge coming down. Boats in the bay, beautiful bay. I think there was even that's Thomas jumping into a raft at Destin, Florida. I was trying to say there's Bobby Chaffetz, now known as Dr. Robert Shea, famous dentist and teacher at university in, I think it's Tulane University in New Orleans, outside New Orleans. Folka and Thomas in the water. Bobby, and there's his wife Berbel, German girl. We went skiing with them once at Arosa, Switzerland. Stephanie jumping in. Hello, Berbel. And there's their daughter, Nicole, was it? Or Alexandra? Stephanie and Thomas, and there's little Alexandra. Natalie. Berbel Shaye with Natalie and Alexandra. Oh, there's Natalie. Where's Alexandra? And there's Mark is growing in the tummy. Berbel gave Folk a lot of pregnant clothes. Maybe that's Natalie. Natalie. And here we are. It's time for a river raft trip down the Chattahoochee River, folks. We're making the climb down the hill. This is before they built this official landing there. Don't forget, it's 1977. Slowly coming down the waterway, the banks of the Chattahoochee River. Steffi pumping up the raft, or the tire, the inner tube. Tommy was pumping up the raft with a bigger pump. And here's the Chattahoochee River, folks. Famous Saturday, Sunday afternoon trips in the summer in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the favorite activities. Load up your beer and drinks and some snacks and chips and take a 2-3 hour float 4, 5, 6 miles down some Folk is showing off Mark. That's you, Mark. Yep, see your nose? Nose is poking up. There's the glow of a pregnant woman. Just beautiful. All aglow. Everything growing inside. Here's Tommy taking some pretty good movies of Gordon and the Holber. Stephanie. Hello. Don't shake the camera, Tommy. Hold it steady. Don't move it back and forth. Don't move it up and down. You did a good job, Tom. And now Steffi's taking movies. Okay, we're back at Stone Mountain again. I'll have to splice all these together, edit these together with the tapes. Looking, though, this gives a nice 3D profile type shot of the famous faces of the three generals carved into the side of Stone Mountain. Get a good close-up here. From the front view, you really don't see the depth of the faces. Here you see that they're not exactly positioned the way you'd expect them to be, but very well done. Took them like 30 years to carve that. First they were doing it with jackhammers, then they got some special sandblasting equipment. Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and who else? Here's Leanne, Wortley, and Shirley on our condominium. Haven't moved into the house yet. There's Bonnie O'Hara. A bottle of wine on the table. Guess we were playing some music there. That looks like a record player. There's our fireplace in the background. We had a very nice apartment. Jim O'Hara and Folka. Ross visiting us. I guess this is the only time they visited us on Johnson Ferry Road. There's the French doors that went onto the patio. I put some heavy security locks. There had been some break-ins there. Hello, Jim. Yeah. And Jim is just quelling with Leanne. His daughter finally got married at about age 30, Beth. And I guess he just can't wait to be a grandfather. He was ready then. He was ready 20 years ago. We took Ross took me up and gave me a lesson in Indian mound history. Ross had a degree in geology, so he knew all about rock formations. And everywhere we toured, we went to Stone Mountain. He told me more about rock formations in Stone Mountain than I ever heard about. Yes, you did, Roscoe. You knew your way around rocks. And there's little Leanne. They visited with us, of course, many times after that. I guess we hadn't been up to see them yet in ski country. Those movies must be coming later. Beautiful shot. This was one of those glistening, doesn't get captured adequately on videotape, but the movies of this were just gorgeous. There's little Leanne getting changed in the car, in the station wagon, by proud mommy Shirley. There was Ross right next to her. And there's Folka knitting in our condominium visit somewhere around Savannah, Georgia. We went to Fort Jackson, was a Civil War fort here. also designed by Robert E. Lee in 1830, so that must have been his expertise, was designing forts.